Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. My name is Bonz. Joining me today is Sir Swans, formerly known as Swans Rule 100.
Welcome.
And Punts.
Hi guys.
Now we're coming off a fantastic 71-point win over North Melbourne that most importantly puts us into the 2004 AFL Grand Final. We may as well go straight into a review of the North Melbourne game before we preview the match. Swans Rule, do you want to take us away?
That's Sir Swans. Look, I don't want to talk too much about this game because there's a way more important game to talk about. And, you know, North Melbourne probably aren't as competitive as Hawthorn will be. But I thought, a few notes, I thought Goods, especially early, that was probably his best game for at least 4 months or so because he was running both ways, pushing in the midfield. And I thought he really sparked us up, especially early. I know he faded late a bit. And I thought Lloyd was similar. He had a good first half and faded, but that's what young players do. I was critical of Reid all week, but I actually thought that was one of his better games as well until he got injured because that forward setup worked a bit better and he could have had a couple of goals early, but he didn't. But he played a little bit better role in the forward line. A couple of times he got in the way, but I mean, credit to him because I have been critical. Tippett, I was really excited about the way he was moving, some of the ways he busted through the pack at one stage, got the ball out, I think it was the first quarter, and set up that goal to Jetta that he sort of kicked out in space was because of Tippett's bullocking work. And if his hands had have been a bit crisp early on, he probably could have been kicked 7 or so himself. But that Franklin Goods Reid Buddy thing worked really. That's the best it's been set up. So I hope it stays that way this weekend. Franklin was awesome. I mean, what more can you say? He set Tippett up. He was doing everything. He gave Thompson a bath, and I was worried about that matchup. Cunningham. I mean, did Brent Harvey get off that suspension? I thought he was meant to play, but apparently he didn't because Cunningham seemed to take him right out of the game. Gary Rowan, sensational. What more can you say? Parker, Kennedy, Jack Hanbury all got on top. Pike, I actually thought lost to Goldstein overall, but again,
Really?
like the Sandlands matchup, he just did enough to keep us in it. Jetta had a few nice moments. The defence didn't have to do much. Let's be fair, they wasn't really down there. They weren't made to work. McVeigh was a bit quiet, but I mean, you can't be too critical in it. I think it's our highest score in a final it's definitely our biggest winning margin in a final, so you can't really complain. And let's hope we play like that next week. A repeat result would be nice.
Okay, Punts, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, overall it was a good game. The first 10 minutes, I thought North played alright, and I thought it might be a bit closer than obviously the end result. As I said, it was good to see Tippett. He probably could have had 6 if he didn't bounce off his chest, but it's good to see him finally clunk some and hit the scoreboard. That would have been good for his confidence going into this week. And obviously Franklin was a standout. He pushed up the ground, went deep, took marks over his head, did everything Buddy did besides get one from the boundary line. Gary Rowan was probably my highlight for the night. Obviously you guys know how much I rate Gary, and I just thought coming off the Fremantle game, obviously he probably would have been a bit tentative going into this game, but to see everyone get around him and after he stuffed up in the Freo game to come out against North and put on the display he did was real credit to him to get 23 possessions off the half back line and break the lines pretty much every time he got the ball. He gave a don't argue, and they just couldn't catch him. So that was my highlight for the night. Obviously, Parker again had another good game. That mark he took was probably the best mark of the finals. Just a midfield overall were pretty good. McVeigh was a little bit quiet, but I thought he held. Wasn't so much a defensive forward tag, but he just made Dalsano accountable. Dalsano still had maybe 20, 25 disposals, but it was nothing that he wasn't walking off the ground in the best, that's for sure. So I think McVeigh sort of sacrificed his own game to make Dalsano accountable after what he did against Geelong the week before. So that was good. Obviously, Harry Cunningham, thought Ree Shaw did a couple of good things off the half-back. Malcheski, I still think didn't want to go overly too far in his kicking and his striding, so I think it'd be better for the run this week. Maybe he was a little bit tentative. Lloyd. No, overall, as Sir Swans said, the whole forward line just functioned well, and I went on all week about isolating the defenders and not kicking it to the spare man like we did against Fremantle. You only have to look at the end of the day, the score at the end of the day to say, obviously we kicked a lot bigger score. Obviously Fremantle a lot more defensive, but when you isolate your defenders, it's pretty hard to beat Tippett, who's going to be 10 centimetres bigger than his normal opponent, and Buddy Franklin that's going to be able to beat a lot of people one on one. Considering Scott Thompson had the better of him earlier in the year and as an All-Australian full-back. So overall, good game. One more to go now.
Swans Rule actually brought up one thing that I was pretty surprised about. Apparently Mike Pike and Tippett got beaten by Goldstein in the ruck. I actually took that as the biggest positive coming out of the game. We were shown up a little bit by Sanderlands in the prelim, but Pike and Tippett actually won the hitouts and got a fair few to advantage as well. And Goldstein didn't do too much damage around the ground. Usually he can drift forward and drift back and kick a few goals, and stop a few, but he only got one and didn't get many hitouts to advantage. Personally, I thought it was Pike's best game for the year. Swans Rule, you're going to argue with me?
Oh, sorry. I thought maybe he broke even. I know he won the hitouts, but I still think at times he gets isolated and actually probably not even by his opponent, but he gets stuck on a smaller man and they mark in the forward line. I just noticed on the replay. I thought initially on the night that he won the battle, but watching the replay, I noticed Goldstein a little bit more. Maybe I'm marking him hard. I'm just worried about the ruck duel because I think a player like Segler, and even if they bring McAvoy in or Hale, whoever, could potentially exploit Pike. But Tippett's definitely a better backup than when Reid was doing it. So, I'm sure they'll hold sway. But, yeah, maybe he beat him. What do I know? Not a ruck coach.
I personally, I think that Tippett was brilliant when he went into the ruck. You can actually get a couple of clearances around the ground, and as Punts mentioned, his bollocking work and the fact that he can actually extract the ball and break a few tackles was really important on the weekend.
Yeah, to me, Tippett's the number one ruckman in the team ahead of Pike, but you wouldn't play him there full time.
No, of course not. It's going to be interesting. We may as well move on from the fantastic win over North Melbourne. It's always good beating North, but we do have more important fish to fry this week. Now, Hawthorn were nearly run down by Port Adelaide in the final quarter. I don't know if it was complacency or just Port Adelaide's superior fitness, but they really got let off. If Port hadn't kicked 2 goals, 9 or whatever it was in the first quarter, Hawthorn would have been in a lot of trouble, personally, in my opinion.
Maybe, but I mean, if you looked at 2012 grand final, if Buddy kicked straight, we wouldn't have been premiers. So poor kicking for goals is just poor footy. It's no different to a shit kick around the ground. So best team won. That's
true, but it wasn't the traditional or typical Hawthorn dominant performance that we've usually seen through the year. It was a bit more attrition from them, except for the very incredibly worrying of Roughhead up forward, who we're going to have our work really cut out for this weekend. Punts, how do you see us trying to quell Roughhead this weekend?
I wouldn't have a clue. If it was me, I'd make a hard call and bring in Tommy Walsh and tell him to belt him in the first quarter. Because that's the only way that Roughhead's going to get stopped. Tommy Walsh is an Irishman, probably got a little bit of mongrel about him. Going home at the end of the year, I'd bring him in. Give him one across the back of the year. And that's the only way we're going to stop him, I think. Because other than that, if Ted Richards line up him, I'm probably going to have to look away every time it goes near him, because I thought on the weekend, and not just the weekend, I think Jack Rewalt the week before, Pavlich have been getting the better of Teddy Richards. I've been pretty crucial of him. No, not so much bagging him. He's still a very good defender, but I think now he's actually either lost a little bit of a yard or he's starting to decline a little bit that I've seen the last, probably a couple of months now. He's getting done on the lead time and time again. I don't know how many times Petrie got him the other night, but it must have been 5 or 6 times. Petrie kicked straight, he probably kicked 6. Jack Rewalt had kicked 4 in the first quarter. That matchup had to be moved. Pavlich gets 4 on him. I just think he's lost the yard and maybe not reading the game as well as he was. Obviously, if your midfield's going to give you awesome service like Hawthorn, will do. He's going to get exposed regardless of who's on him, but I just think he's going to have to really pull one out of the bag this weekend to stop Roughhead from even kicking 4 or 5 because Roughhead got the better of him in round 18. Roughhead kicked straight. He probably could have kicked 6 or 7. So, to me, that could be the difference of the game is nullifying Roughhead.
The main worrying thing, actually, just for me in regards to Roughhead is just how versatile he is in both the air and on the ground. Like, I'd almost feel more comfortable throwing Grundy to Roughhead this weekend, but is Richard strong enough in the air to take a resting ruckman? That's the issue. Or David Hale. Swans Rule, how do you see us stopping Roughhead on the weekend?
Wing a prayer. I think it's going to be team defence. And last time in the second half, I thought Clarkson started spreading our defenders out and making them play one-on-one. That's my recollection of the game. I haven't gone back and watched it, and try to expose them. So you've got Roughhead against Ted, one out, because that's when Ted's going to get his ass handed to him on a platter. Yeah, he's probably lost a yard, but he's also, 5 or 6 centimetres shorter, probably 10 kilos less than Roughhead. We're asking him to do a job he probably shouldn't be doing. So if he's at one out with continual entries, even at his peak, he's not going to win that matchup. So he needs team defence. And I'm not talking about that bullshit where him and Grundy and Malcheski or Rampy all jump into each other. I mean, a bit of communication and a bit of third man up. I can't see Horse dropping 2 back on Roughhead. So I think Ted has to have first crack, and I think we'll have to have a bit of faith, but he can't be afraid to make that move. And if he has to move Rampy to him even, I think Punts suggested that. Maybe Grundy, try anyone. Maybe a Reed late in the game, a la LRT going back in 2012. Maybe that's the matchup. I don't know, but we haven't got an ideal matchup for Roughhead. But let's face it, he's one of the best forwards in the game, clearly, All-Australian, and rightly so. So it'll be one in the midfield. That's where you stop him, I think. Stop his supply and frustrate him. Unless, I'm tempted by the idea of a Welsh coming in with the crowbar. Yeah. But yeah, maybe Buddy could go down on him if we're really struggling or something. I don't know. I think if you knew the answer, we'd be in the coach's box, I think.
Yeah, definitely. As you said, you just got to sort of create that high ball coming into him so you can get defenders back to help each other. If he's going to have it out on a platter, he's going to get it every time, regardless of who he's played on. So we just need to do what Port did and put a lot of pressure on in the midfield so they cause it to high bomb and just get a few numbers back. One thing I probably would do, I'd probably leave Gary Rowan as maybe the 7th defender, him being the loose only because of his closing speed to get to a contest that he'll be able to get across and help out Teddy in the air. And if the ball does go to ground, he can put enough pressure on Roughhead, with his leg speed. So that could be an idea, just to leave Rowan in the back half as a loose like we normally do with either him or Malcheski. So leave him in the back half. He's, as I said, he's quick enough to get to the contest. Really good closing speed, so he can get across and help out. If ball comes to ground, he's big enough to get a tackle on Roughhead. Obviously, he's one of the best tacklers in the team, so that could be an idea. But as you said, it's going to be the midfield.
Whatever we do, we've got to be careful because I like the idea of Rowan coming up third man helping out, but as soon as you do that, at the other end they're going to have probably bloody Luke Hodge spare, picking up 25 bloody possessions off the half-back flank and hitting people hitting people lace out. So, yeah, we've got to stop Roughhead, but we can't get separated in one-on-one, but we've got to try and win the game. I think Clarkson's got just as many headaches at the other end, so I think it really comes down to Kennedy, Parker, Hanbury, who was missing last time, get the hands on the ball, because last time I think Craig Bird was our leading possession winner, and whereas Hodge, Mitchell, Lewis all had 30 plus. If that happens again, we've lost the game, in my opinion, if that happens. Kennedy needs a big game, especially Hanbury really needs a big game. Parker, McVeigh, get the ball in their hands. Kieran Jack seems to be fitter now. That's where you stop Roughhead, because if it's down there, as you said, he'll kick 4 or 5 plus easy.
The one thing, just going back on the term about defence and team defence on the weekend, I do want to point out Ted Richards had 12 1%ers on the weekend, not including tackles, and Rohan had 10. Next closest in our team for 1%ers was McVeigh with 5. It seemed to almost be a double team at times, just Rohan and Richards on the weekend in our defence. Grundy only had 2 1%ers all game. Admittedly, he was holding the man back in the square a bit at the time, but that's something I think Grundy will have to have a really big match this weekend and really help come across and try and cut out some of Roughhead's supply.
Yeah, I mean, North had, 44 inside 50s, and most of them were rubbish. We pantsed them in the middle, and our defence wasn't even tested. So I'm not trying to poo-poo the one percenters. That was really great. The defence did its job, but it's just night and day comparing that North Melbourne forward and the way they played compared to our Hawthorn are going to come out this week. They're going to be a way tougher proposition, and they're the one team that didn't let Malcheski run off halfback and set up play. Because, I mean, as much as I like Longmire and I wouldn't swap him for the world, I still think Clarkson's actually, as much as I hate Clarkson, he's the best coach in the AFL tactically on match day, because he doesn't let you get away with that sort of shit. So, I mean, we got to get our matchups right and get out the ball in players' hands like Malcheski and really hurt them on the overlap, which we didn't do last time, which we probably did more in round 8 or whenever we played in round 9. Can't remember when it was when we beat them. Beat Box Hill.
It's going to be... Well, the other thing that also, we'll move on to the midfield now. How do you see the ruck matchups? Do you believe Pike and Tippett have Segler and Hale perfectly matched up, unless, of course, they bring in McAvoy, who's rested from their VFL team today? Punts?
I actually reckon they'll bring in McAvoy, only because of his work around the ground. He's a really good endurance runner, McAvoy, and I think they'll try and... But knowing that we tend to go with Pike a lot and Tippett is just backup, I think they're going to try and run Tippett and Pike off their legs, to be honest with McAvoy. He's obviously been playing some real good football, and he does get around and take a few clunks around the ground, and I think they might try and exploit Pike and take him deep where he probably doesn't want to be. So that could be interesting, just run him off the ground and, maybe come to that last quarter and really get on top. That could be, that could be something they try and look at, but just hopefully Pike's up for another big one like he was in the 212. But I presume this week that Tippett might have to spend just a tiny little bit more time in the ruck, going up against 2 ruckmen instead of going up just against Goldstein.
What about you, Swans? Sir Swans.
It doesn't matter. I don't think McAvoy will play. I mean, he's been best on the VFL the last 4 weeks previously and hasn't got a game. And I think Clarkson rates Segler, and he's not going to drop Hale and Hale seems to trouble Sydney. So I think it's a crucial matchup. But Pike is an honest toiler in the ruck, and he does his job. I wouldn't trade him. I'd trade him for a better ruckman, but I wouldn't trade him sort of for the world at the moment. He does his role, but we win in spite of Pike in a way, and that's not to insult him, but I mean, I actually think Segler's going to be a really good player when he develops, and I think Hale's pretty good. If McAvoy is the trade-in, that's a strength for Hawthorn, but I'll back Pike in. He's a grand final specialist we've seen, so yeah. Again, I'm not dismissing the ruck, but it comes down to hands on the ball and the clearances, which will be controlled by stopping Mitchell and bloody Lewis and all those sort of players and getting hands to the ball first. What do you think, Bonz?
Personally, I can't see them bringing in McAvoy. I don't think they'll make any changes to their starting 22 unless they want to bring in Rioli, who was pretty disappointing today's VFL Grand Final. Only got through about 50% game time, was rested on the bench for the entire final quarter. I don't think they'd even risk him as sub. Just if they get an early injury, have to sub someone out. Having Rioli on the ground for the entire match could pose some problems. The only possible change I can really see for Hawthorn's team would be if Lewis doesn't get up from his severe corky, maybe Brad Seal will come in, but I think that's unlikely. The ruck matchup, I'm actually pretty confident about Pike holding his own against Segler and Hale. They might do some damage on him around the ground, but Pike's generally okay at negating an opposition's ruckman's influence around the ground. Not too worried about that. I think the real key part of the match will be for us is when we can actually throw Tippett into the ruck. He made a massive difference on the weekend against North Melbourne, and I really rate him as a tap ruckman, and the fact he's really good when the ball gets to the ground. If we're within, let's say it's less than a goals difference, 5 minutes left, I'd be having Tippett starting at centre square.
Really?
Yeah, personally.
No. I couldn't see that because you'd want Tippett in the forward line, the goal square, marking the ball.
If only we could clone him, eh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the AFL wanted to really look after us,
a team of 2006 Adam Goodses will be nice. We can pull him back a few years in age. That being said, we'll just move on from the ruck topic. Hawthorn have got some pretty dangerous small forwards and other forwards in their team. Punts and I were talking before the show began. We believe Rampy will go to Gunston. Again, he did a really good job in round 18 and has done a good job on him a few times before. Seems to have the right athletic traits to really go with Gunston, and Gunston doesn't have a good record on him. If Rioli does play, though, and is starting, who would you send Smith to? Because Smith's got a great record on Rioli and was touched up a little bit by Bruce earlier in the year.
Is Rioli starting in this scenario?
Let's say Rioli's starting.
I think the only reason you'd pick Rioli is to make that matchup harder and the desperation. But I guess if he's starting, just because of his record, you almost would send Smith to him, and then you have to send Shaw to the other one, I guess, because I wouldn't want Shaw on Rioli. I wouldn't want Shaw on Bruce, really. I'd send Smith to Rioli. You two might disagree, but that's who I would go to. But I don't think Rioli plays, surely, unless they're that desperate. I think that I'll take that as a nice sign that they're worried and that we've got them.
Punts?
If Rioli does play, he'll be sub. I think it'll just be a straight swap sub for Simpkins. So obviously, Bruce is all. Let's be honest, he's in all Australian form. Well, he actually was all Australian, so he's probably the best small forward in the comp at the moment. Him and Ballantyne. So I think Smith has to go to him. Rioli, if he does play, will be sub. I'd presume, because I can't see him making a Suckling a sub, or a Shields or a Juraya or anyone like that a sub. So I think he'll have to be the sub. So we'll just take care of that when he does come on. But Smith has to get Bruce this time, and hopefully he can do a better job than he did in round 18 when Bruce got a bit of a hold of him in that regard. But I'd be definitely starting Smith on the best small forward in the comp at the moment in Bruce.
I mean, that's the only time I really remember Smith being beaten in the last few years, so I reckon he'd like to have that matchup, you would think. You reckon he'd want another crack at him. Bruce has had a great year, but I actually think his last two weeks in the finals have been pretty average. So hopefully he keeps up that form, because he hasn't impressed me the last 2 weeks. Has he never kicked a goal? I think he kicked one against the Cats, didn't he?
He kicked 2 behinds on the weekend.
Did he? I thought he didn't even
score. No, sorry, he got 2 goal assists, not behinds. My bad.
You sure? I thought he didn't score.
No, he got 2 goal assists, no goals or behinds.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, he hasn't been terrible, but I think he's been down a little bit compared to his season, so I don't know. Again, I'd back Smith to beat either, but if you've got Smith occupied by one, then who takes the other one? It has to be Shaw, doesn't it? Because you wouldn't really make Malcheski play on someone directly.
If Rioli's playing up the ground, you could possibly have Cunningham running with him, but I think Cunningham will probably be the perfect matchup for Isaac Smith.
I'll still put Cunningham on heel.
Yeah, who do you guys see, actually? Who do you actually think will run a tag with through the midfield? Punts?
Well, last time Lewis Mitchell and all that got a hold of us. Let's be honest. Last time, I don't think we'll tag any of Lewis. I think they'll go head to head. I'm actually thinking that Parker might copy his first tag this weekend in Langford. I reckon they might send. I know for a fact that Hawthorn rate Parker really highly, so I wouldn't be surprised if Langford gets a crack at Parker. Whether it happens or not, we'll wait and see. But I think we'll go to head-to-head of a few. I think Sam Mitchell, obviously off the half-back flank. To be honest with you, normally we've put Ryan O'Keefe to Mitchell. I wouldn't be surprised one little bit if we put McVeigh to Mitchell and just make him a cannibal, and they just both go head-to-head. When he goes into the middle, he only goes into the middle at times. When he goes into the middle, McVeigh just follows him around and sort of does a Nicky like he did to Nick Dalsano, and just stop his influence on the actual game. So McVeigh's obviously good enough to do that, and hopefully McVeigh can hurt him the other way. He might sacrifice a little bit of his own game, but that's the way I see it. I don't think you have to put a really hard tag on Mitchell at the moment, so that's what I'd be going with. I'd just be saying McVeigh just makes him accountable and they just go head-to-head. Smith's more worrying for me. I know how good form Hill's been in, but Smith just worries me a hell of a lot more than Hill, only because of his goal kicking ability. Anywhere from around the 50-metre mark, he slots them. Let's be honest, he slots them from 55, 60. Round 18, he had 19 disposals and kicked 3 goals against us. To get 19 disposals, I guess it's not really low in disposals, but it is, and to kick 3 goals out of that, well. That just hurts you big time when you have a low disposals and you're kicking 3 goals. So on the weekend he had, I think, 9 or 20 disposals and kicked another 2 against Port. So could be the difference in the game. Hill doesn't hit the scoreboard as much as Smith, in my opinion. So I know the Harry and Smith Hill matchups just a sort of perfect matchup. I hope they do go for that, because it'd be interesting to see if he can get the job done on Bradley Hill. I think he can, but if someone has to go to Smith, if they don't decide to tag Smith as in with a Harry Cunningham and he does go to Hill, someone has to make him accountable. I really don't know who they got planning on going with Smith, because you have to be decent in the air too. So I don't think they'll run Hanbury with him, as in not as a defensive forward, but just both go sort of head to head, run both ways sort of thing. But I can't really see that playing, because Hanbury goes into the midfield and plays inside a little bit as well. So that's an interesting one. If it was me, I'd be going with Smith, putting Harry Cunningham on Smith, and maybe running Jetta on Hill and just making them go head to head like they had the last 2 games. Really, Hill hasn't hurt us the last 2 games. Jettas might have to be a bit more defensive. Whether that happens or not, it'll be good to see this weekend.
What about Lloyd? Could he play on someone running the role?
Lloyd actually got Smith. He played mostly on Smith in round 18 and got him, and obviously took him forward and kicked a couple of goals. So I don't know if they'll go with that again. But I was thinking about today, maybe Harry Cunningham could go to Smith, and maybe Lloyd could go to Hill. I know Hill's an elite runner, but so is Lloyd. He runs 15 beat tests as well, so same as Hill. So maybe as I said, just not a hard tag, but just have to make him accountable and run both ways with him, because that'd be an interesting matchup too. Lloyd v Hill, and then Harry Cunningham gets a hard tack on Isaac Smith, whereas in 18 Lloyd sort of ran around with Smith for a little bit, and to be honest with you, we hurt us with 19 disposals and 3 goals.
Okay, Swans rule. How do you see Hawthorn manning up on our forward line?
Well, I think Gibson will go to Buddy. I know some people don't think that will happen, but I think he'll get first crack, and because Lake will go to Tippett. Lake didn't play last time from memory, did he? He was suspended. So,
yeah, he was suspended last time. They played John Makers.
Yeah, Tippett wasn't fit anyway, but he still kicked 2. I think Tippett's the key, because I think Buddy against Gibson poses not quite as bad as Richards on Roughhead potentially, but I think Buddy's got him covered in the air and on the ground, the way he's clunking him at the moment, the way he's moving. So if he can stop Gibson from going bloody third man up all the time, that would be awesome. I know ideally they'd like to free him up, but I can't see someone like Spenger going with him. I think Spenger will have to play on Reed or someone, and then you've got Goods, who needs an opponent. Don't know. So Goods could be an X factor, but they exploited him with a bit of run last time, and then they'll probably
Stratton on Goods, I reckon. Maybe Suckling.
There you go, Stratton. Yeah, I guess so. So there's a chance for Goods to shine, and Reed to probably beat Spanger. So hopefully, I think we get the ball in there. I think they've got just as many problems matching up. So I think it's Lake to Tippett and Gibson to Buddy is the way they'll start. I don't know what you guys think. That's how I think they'll go.
Okay, Punts?
Yeah, I think Lake's a given, obviously, to take Tippett. He has before. He's taken Hawkins. He'll take Tippett, no doubt about it. They might give Gibson a crack at Buddy like usual, but Buddy's actually given the towel up the last 2 games. So I heard a few on the game shows today saying that Spanger might get a go on Buddy. Whether they do that and maybe allow allow, if they go Spanger with Franklin, they can allow Gibson to maybe go to Goods and roll off and play that third man up like he does to get across and help out Lake against Tippett, and Buddy against Spanger could really get across and he plays natural role. Then that leaves Stratton probably to take Reed, which he's given up a few centimetres, but he's a pretty good defender, Stratton, so I could see that happening. But I don't think I don't think Spanger will play forward like he did on the weekend, only because Port Adelaide have only got Westhoff and Schultz, and they had them pretty covered with Gibson back and Lake back there on the weekend. That might change with Reed, Tippett, and Goods and Franklin this weekend, so he might play back in defence. That's the only way I could sort of see, unless they give Gibson the role again. But I actually think I wouldn't be surprised if they gave Spanger a go at Buddy and just let Gibson play his natural role as the third man in, and he goes to Goods and just peels off Goods and comes across and helps out like he does when he was best and fairest last year.
Okay, Swans rule. How do you see the match for folding? Like, what's your tip? How do you believe it will be a close game? Do you believe team it'll be close to the first half and then the team will burst out of the blocks in the second?
Hawthorn score quickly. I mean, round 18, half time, I thought we probably had them. I mean, when we had the 23-point lead, I think we got out to, and they just score so quickly. And I mean, last night, Port came out of the blocks, started well. I mean, I know they missed their chances, but Hawthorn just fight back. Geelong, maybe not so much in the final, but the time before looked like they had them, and Hawthorn fight back. So even if we go in half time with a 30-point lead, they're the one side you think, well, shit, we're going to have to really hold them up here. You sort of an hour on it and trying to be 2-1 but you sort of picture it a little bit like 2012. It's going to be an arm wrestle and come out 10 points either side. But I think, and then other times I think we might do them. I think, I don't want to jinx it, but look, I think the Swans will win it by 6 goals. I think we're going to get on top. I think Buddy's going to give Gibson a bath. I think Tippett's actually finally fit, and I think that's what we paid these two pricks to do. I think they'll get on top. I was happy with the way Goods played on the weekend, and I think if provided Kennedy, Hanbury, Jack get on top and McGlynn provides that energy, I think we've got too many weapons and we'll beat them. I'm confident today. Ask me again on Thursday, I might not be so confident. I think it's going to change, but yeah, I think we'll be premiers. I said it all year, so I'll stick with it.
Okay, Punts?
I have to agree with what Sir said. I think obviously it's going to be the midfield. If we can get in there and isolate them, to be honest, we win. Because I can't see how, without Gibbo coming up as the third man, if we can isolate them, Buddy on whoever and Tippett on Lake, I think we'll win the game. And if we can, ball use obviously as well, we can't afford to turn over the ball. But if we can isolate our forwards, that's it. I think we win the game. And if they're kicking straight, the thing with Hawthorn is they're never out of the game. As you know, 30 points to them, they kick 5 goals in 10 minutes, and they're never out of the game. And they've got the momentum, and they're coming back at you like we've seen the last 6 weeks, and just stuff like that with them. They're never ever out of the game. So momentum's going to be a big thing this weekend, and we've got to take our chances when we've got our momentum. If we kick shit while we've got the momentum, and they go forward, and they hardly ever miss when they get it in their forward line. If we get repeat entries of 5 entries and we kick 4 goals, 1, and then we leave them and go up there to get 1 entry and they kick a goal, it's just going to be wasted momentum, and I think we'll lose the game if it comes down to opportunities. If we waste them and don't kick straight in front of goal, I think we'll lose the game. If we kick straight and isolate the defenders, I think we'll win the game. It's pretty simple. Just take advantage when you've got the momentum. If you're willing to throw it away like Port Adelaide did, well, you won't win the game. It's pretty simple. Hawthorn will just get it up the other end and they'll score.
I think this is the fittest we've had Tippett all year, really. So that's the biggest thing I see. I mean, he played against Hawthorn both times, but I don't think he was fit either time, and I think he still kicked 6 goals between the 2 games. I think if he gets one out in that forward line against Lake, he could kick 5 or 6 easily. So I think that's the key. But as you say, it's actually a pretty intriguing battle because I think both teams have the same little headache down back and good midfield. It should be a good game. It should be a cracker, but we should win it. We've got the better team on paper, so I think there's more pressure on us. I think we deserve to be favourites, and yeah, we should get the job done. But being at their home ground makes it a bit harder, I guess. But yeah.
One thing is, I just hope that that Buddy kicks straight early on, and then it sort of just takes the pressure off him a little bit. Say, for instance, he kicks 2 goals straight, it takes the pressure off him a little bit, then kicking 3 behinds because the crowd's just, every time he kicks a behind, if it's to start off with, they're just going to get stuck into him, and he's probably going to be thinking, fuck, I hope I kick this one, I hope I kick this one, I hope I kick this one. So I just cross fingers. If he starts well, I know it's not all up to him, but if him and Tippett start well, as in hitting the scoreboard, and it takes away that thought in the back of his mind of, I hope I kick this one, otherwise I'm going to cop it off the crowd. I think that'll be massive.
Yep, and if he's missing him, I hope they move him further up the ground or whatever and kick to Tippett more. Like, don't let Buddy he shouldn't kick 2 goals 7 because he shouldn't keep having bloody shots if he's missing it. Like, he needs help, and I hope we don't just bomb it in like we did against Freo a bit in that first half. Like, Luke Hodge getting 30 bloody possessions off half back would kill us, I think, if we let him do that. So, yeah, I hope Longmire doesn't get out coached because I thought he did last time. So, I think it could be one in the coach's box, really.
Yep.
There's no easy grand finals, though, unless you're Geelong in 2007, but it's just going to be hard forward, I reckon.
Yeah.
What do you think, Bonz?
I agree. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. It'll start off close for the first half, and I think a team will break away in the third quarter. Most likely us. We've been the better side throughout the year, excluding our first 4 rounds. We were a bit off the boil in round 18, and personally, we have more improvement to come out of that game than they did. I don't care if we're playing Box Hill.
No,
we
had
had
half
our
10
team.
And they carved us up. So, I mean,
They absolutely carved us up. We had a number of key players down, and I think the main key to that match is we still had our most important player to our team out of the side that day, Dan Hanbury. If Hanbury can get over 22, 24 disposals on the weekend, we win. Like, Punts was mentioning that they might send Langford to Parker. I hope they do. Because if we can free up Hanbury on the weekend, that could be the winning matchup for us.
I do agree, but the difference is Parker hits the scoreboard more than Hanbury. So that's who I would tag if I was Clarkson. So
if in all honesty, if Langford's following Parker throughout the ground, I wouldn't mind us moving Parker away from the midfield, putting him up forward.
Yep,
I believe he's a better... Langford's a great footballer. He's a really good in and under player. He's from New South Wales as well, so bit of a missed opportunity by us there. Even if he was a father-son pick, we could have academy recruited him. But look, I rate him, but he isn't brilliant at the marking contest. He's better around the clearances. So if we can isolate him in defence against Parker, that's going to be a winning matchup for us. So I hope Clarkson pulls the trigger on that one. That'll be brilliant.
Having sat through 2005 and 2012, can we just have one premiership where we know we've won it with 25 minutes to go? That would be nice.
Yeah, my heart can't take much more being a Swans fan.
I know, we're all going to live to about 60 the way it's going.
60? Really?
If we're lucky. We're going to die of heart failure.
I'm currently 23 and I'd be happy to make 40.
Exactly. I just want to, 3/4 time, I want to be celebrating like we were on Friday night. Oh. I was still worried about a North revival.
Forever the pessimist?
Yeah, we seem to always have a close one, don't we? As you said, I'd just love to know, 10 minutes into the last quarter or something like that, you can just relax. You're just done. You know if you're going to win or not. But I don't know. Coming up against Hawthorn, as you say, you just never know, and it wouldn't be surprised.
Are you saying it's a danger game?
It's definitely a danger game, guys. Let's get that right.
Look, we'll finish off with a closing statement from each of us. Swans rule?
What do you mean a closing statement?
Well, your final thoughts.
Look, let's just kill these pricks. I hate fucking Hawthorn and I hate their fans. They're a bunch of dicks. If any of them listen to it all the way through this, you can all piss off. I don't like any of you, so I hope we smash the little Tasmanian pricks into the ground. 100 points would be nice.
Okay, Punts.
Oh, obviously I want us to win, so like we were just discussing, I just hope it's not a close one. I'd rather know at 3/4 time if we're going to win or lose. Just win. I don't care. Just win the bloody game so we don't have to put up with this shit all over the whole off season and that sort of stuff. The off season goes a lot quicker when you've won the grand final than it does than when you go out early.
Okay, my final thoughts are, if it's a close game, I hope Buddy sinks Hawthorn after the siren, if it's close, because that'll just be poetic. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening to this week's edition of the Swans Bigfooty Podcast. My name is Bonz. Today I've been joined by Sir Swans.
See you later, guys. Enjoy the premiership win.
And Punts.
Cheers, guys.
Anyways, good luck, Sydney, and hopefully we're celebrating with all next week. Thank you and good night.